Yeah, I do. Should you got this? I can't, big rat.
Hold on, let me make sure that.
Well, hello everybody, good evening. My name is Juan Reyes. Today I will be talking about JFK. And okay, my main purpose of my speech is to inform all of you about JFK, a little bit about his life, his influence on the Vietnam War, and the day of his assassination. To begin, I will talk about who he was. JFK was the 35th President of the United States. He was assassinated on November 22nd, 1963. And what's it called? He was a war hero that rose out of World War II. He rescued a bunch of his fellow Marines after his ship had sunken off the coast of Okinawa in Japan. Okay. Now I will be talking about the Vietnam War and his influence in the war. Okay. So when the Vietnam War rolled around, it's called Vietnam. He was advised not to go into it because when there was a fight against communism, he wasn't, the American people were not, they had no place in it, basically. Okay, and from a quote from investigating Kennedy, it said, if Kennedy had not been assassinated, there would have been no Vietnam War. Basically saying that if he had been alive, he would have just straight up not been in the Vietnam War. No influence and no South Americans in Vietnam. Another quote says, Kennedy would have not faced trouble like Lyndon B. Johnson, meaning that all the people that were like the top brass of the military constantly fought against Lyndon and forced him to go into Vietnam. Unlike Kennedy, who had been dealing with them for a long time because of his past in the army. Another quote says, he knew the horrors of war, as he had been previously part of the World War II and had faced all of the hardships and deaths of his fellow soldiers. So he knew that if he sent all the American people back to Vietnam, they would just create another generation of constant death and regret of attending. Now let's talk about his assassination. On the day of his assassination, people described there was the evidence of two shooters, but only one was caught and was charged with the death of John F. Kennedy, which was Harvey Lee Oswald. I personally believe it was an inside job by the CIA. It gets proven a lot throughout history because he wanted to close that branch. It was an unnecessary spending for the United States. It just created more fear in the American people. And a few days before his assassination, he threatened to close it down. And I also believe it was an inside job because Lyndon B. Johnson constantly reinforced them. He wanted to keep them on. He believed that thanks to this, we would beat the communists. And lastly, just talk about his life in general and who he was. As per you guys' it's called. No, okay. Based on what you guys told me in your audience analysis, you want to talk about more about his life. So I will. He had a sister named Kathleen who was born with a lot of mental health issues, a lot of mental disabilities. So in order to promote him and not have a bad reputation in his name, she got she had an experimental procedure done to her, which pretty much left her unmobile, unable to take care of herself for all her life. He became the first Irish Catholic president of the United States and the youngest at 43 years old. Kennedy loved to swim. He had personally installed a secret pool within the White House. And as per many of you guys may know, he was in a lot of drama throughout his life with his wife and Marilyn Monroe, which to this day people believe they had a secret relationship. Mostly backed up because during one of his birthdays, she sang to him in a very ugly way in front of a lot of people, and that's what they believe he was involved with. And finally, just to conclude, if JFK had been alive, the Vietnam War would have not happened.